For more than 2 decades, I've studied the human brain on glowing screens in the operating room, under the microscope in research labs, and sometimes, tragically, during emergency surgeries where every second mattered. I thought I'd seen it all, but nothing shocked me more than uncovering a quiet truth buried deep inside medical journals, the kind that never makes headlines because it would send the food industry into a panic. We've been sold the idea that certain fruits are the key to longevity, that they're superfoods guaranteed to keep you young, sharp, and healthy. But I've watched people who followed this advice religiously, people who were otherwise healthy, end up in my emergency department with brain bleeds and strokes that could have been avoided. The connection isn't guesswork. It's documented in peer-reviewed studies and confirmed in patient after patient. And the worst part? Almost no one over 60 has even heard about it. You've likely eaten one of these fruits this week without realizing you may have increased your stroke risk overnight. I'm not saying fruit is bad, far from it, but some fruits, under the wrong circumstances, can become silent triggers for catastrophic brain events. These risks go up with age, especially for those taking certain medications or already dealing with high blood pressure, diabetes, or circulation problems. The list I'm about to share will go from the least dangerous to the most dangerous, based on the data and what I've seen in practice. And I'll also tell you which fruits I recommend instead, ones that lower your risk instead of raising it. Let's begin with a fruit that most people think of as the picture of health: bananas. Bananas have been called nature's perfect snack, loaded with potassium for heart health and energy. And yes, potassium is essential. But too much, too quickly, especially in people over 60, can cause sudden changes in how your blood vessels behave. When potassium floods your bloodstream all at once, your vessels can narrow abruptly, a phenomenon called vasospasm. If that vasospasm happens in the brain, blood flow can be cut off in seconds, triggering a small stroke or a temporary mini-stroke known as a TIA. In younger bodies, the kidneys balance this out quickly. But with age, kidney function naturally declines. Add in common medications like ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, or potassium-sparing diuretics, and your body may not be able to clear that potassium in time. I had a patient, Marie, a 72-year-old grandmother who never missed her morning walk. She also never missed her 2 bananas for breakfast, thinking they were keeping her heart healthy. One morning she woke up with slurred speech and weakness in her right arm. Her potassium levels were nearly a full point above the normal range. It was the combination of her diet, her blood pressure medication, and her age that tipped the balance. We removed bananas from her daily routine, replaced them with berries and apple slices, and her symptoms never returned. If you enjoy bananas, think small and occasional, 1 small banana every other day at most, and preferably paired with protein to slow its absorption. The key is not to overload your system in one hit. Now let's move to a fruit that surprises almost everyone: watermelon. Watermelon is often seen as harmless summer refreshment, but it hides a serious danger for certain people. The issue isn't just its sugar load. Though a large slice can contain more than 17 grams of naturally occurring sugar, it's also its high levels of a compound called citrulline. In the body, citrulline converts into arginine, which relaxes blood vessels. That sounds good in theory, but for older adults on blood pressure medications or nitrates for heart disease, this can cause blood pressure to plummet suddenly. A rapid drop in blood pressure may sound less dangerous than high blood pressure, but it can be just as deadly for the brain. If the pressure falls too far, the brain is starved of oxygenated blood, leading to fainting or, in some cases, ischemic stroke. I remember Bill, a 69-year-old former firefighter, who came in after collapsing in his backyard on a hot day. He'd been eating watermelon straight from the fridge for lunch. Between the natural vessel-relaxing effect of citrulline and the blood pressure medication he was taking, his brain was without adequate circulation for several minutes. He recovered, but not everyone is that lucky. The takeaway with watermelon is to enjoy it in small portions, ideally after a balanced meal rather than on an empty stomach, and avoid it entirely if you've recently taken medications that affect blood pressure. Then there's the case of grapes. These little jewels of sweetness carry a problem that most people never connect to stroke risk: rapid blood sugar spikes. A single handful of grapes can send blood glucose soaring, especially in older adults whose insulin response is slower and less efficient. The rapid rise is followed by a sharp drop. That roller coaster effect is called glycemic variability, and it creates inflammation inside blood vessels. Inflamed vessels are more prone to developing the kind of clots that cause ischemic strokes. For patients on certain antidepressants, particularly MAO inhibitors, grapes can also trigger dangerous blood pressure spikes because of a compound called tyramine. I've seen patients who were doing everything right diet-wise land in the ER because of this little-known interaction. One man, Henry, a 74-year-old retired accountant, had no idea his afternoon grape snacking was risky. But his blood pressure medications were interacting with the natural compounds in the grapes, creating swings in both sugar and blood pressure that his brain couldn't keep up with. We switched him to cucumber slices and a handful of blueberries in the afternoon, and the changes in his lab work were remarkable. Here's the hard truth: fruit isn't universally safe just because it's natural. What's safe at 30 can be dangerous at 70, not because the fruit changed, but because our bodies do. The liver processes compounds more slowly, the kidneys filter more sluggishly, and the blood vessels themselves become more sensitive to rapid changes. And the scariest part, most of these stroke trigger fruits are marketed specifically to older adults as health foods. Which is why I believe it's time to start talking about them openly, before another person sits in my exam room asking why their perfect diet landed them in the hospital. If bananas, watermelon, and grapes have their risks, the next fruit takes things to a whole different level. In fact, hospitals have had to issue warnings about it because of how dramatically it interacts with medications. That fruit is grapefruit. Grapefruit contains compounds called furanocoumarins, plant chemicals that interfere with enzymes in your liver, responsible for breaking down many prescription drugs. One glass of grapefruit juice can block these enzymes for up to 72 hours, which means medication levels in your bloodstream can quietly climb into the danger zone without you realizing it. For someone taking statins, this can cause muscle breakdown, a condition called rhabdomyolysis, which floods your bloodstream with proteins that can clog your kidneys and trigger blood clots. For someone on blood thinners or heart medications, the risk can be even more immediate, tipping the balance toward a catastrophic brain bleed or stroke. I'll never forget a patient named James, a 66-year-old who had switched from morning coffee to fresh grapefruit juice because he heard it was good for the heart. Within 2 weeks, he developed severe leg pain and dark urine. Tests showed his statin levels were sky high, almost 15 times the safe limit, and small clots had already traveled to his brain. We saved his life, but his right hand never fully regained its function. The safest amount of grapefruit for anyone on prescription medications is 0. Even people not on medication should know that grapefruit can cause sudden vessel constriction in the brain, increasing stroke risk independently of drug interactions. If you love citrus flavor, lemon water is a much safer choice. Finally, we arrive at the fruit that tops my personal list of never for seniors: pomegranate. Pomegranate has been marketed as the ultimate superfood, praised for its antioxidants and heart benefits. But in older adults, especially those taking any supplement or medication that thins the blood, it can set the stage for a deadly brain hemorrhage. Pomegranates contain high levels of compounds that block vitamin K, a nutrient your body needs to form stable clots. Without enough vitamin K activity, your blood can become so thin that even a small blood vessel rupture in the brain turns into a medical emergency. The danger is multiplied when pomegranates are consumed as juice. A single cup can require the juice of 3 whole pomegranates, delivering a massive dose of these clot-disrupting compounds in minutes. For someone already on aspirin, fish oil, turmeric, or prescription anticoagulants, that's like disabling your body's brakes while speeding downhill. David, a 70-year-old retired history professor, was in exactly that situation. He drank pomegranate juice every morning along with his turmeric capsules and low-dose aspirin. One afternoon, while reading on his porch, he collapsed. Imaging revealed a large bleed in the left side of his brain. His clotting tests were so abnormal that even the neurosurgical team was shocked. He survived but never returned to teaching. His speech and memory were permanently affected. This is why I tell my patients, if you want antioxidants, choose vegetables like spinach, kale, or broccoli. They're rich in protective compounds but don't carry the same blood-thinning dangers. So now the question is, what can you eat daily that will protect your brain rather than harm it? Here are the 3 fruits I personally eat and recommend to nearly every patient. Blueberries. Packed with anthocyanins, they repair blood vessel lining, reduce inflammation, and cross the blood-brain barrier to protect neurons. A cup of fresh or frozen blueberries 3 to 4 times a week can lower stroke risk by up to 1/3. Avocados. Technically a fruit, avocados are rich in healthy fats and potassium that's slowly absorbed, preventing dangerous spikes. They also help absorb fat-soluble brain-protective vitamins from other foods. Strawberries. Low in sugar, high in vitamin C and folate, and containing gentle, natural blood-thinning compounds that don't tip you into bleeding risk. 2 servings a week have been linked to lower stroke rates in large population studies. One of my favorite recommendations is what I call the brain bowl, a mix of blueberries and strawberries topped with avocado slices and a sprinkle of ground flaxseed. It's delicious, satisfying, and built entirely from foods that work with your body, not against it. If you've been eating any of the risky fruits we discussed today, especially if you're over 60 or on prescription medication, I urge you to review your diet with your doctor. Ask about potential interactions. Small changes now can mean the difference between staying independent and facing a long recovery after a preventable stroke. Because at this stage of life, it's not just about living longer, it's about living with clarity, mobility, and dignity. And that starts with knowing which healthy habits are quietly working against you.